Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa was sworn in for a second 5-year term on Monday, a week after securing an absolute majority in a disputed presidential vote. The 80-year-old Mnangagwa took the reins of power for another term in a ceremony attended by thousands of Zimbabweans and regional leaders, including the presidents of South Africa, the Democratic Republic of Congo, as well as Mozambique. Mnangagwa was re-elected after winning more than 2 million votes, which emanates to 52.6% of the total ballots, to defeat his main challenger, that is Nelson Chamisa of the Citizens Coalition for Change party, who received 44% of the votes, according to the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. On Sunday, the chair of the SADC Observer Mission, during a televised session on Zambia's national broadcaster, pointed out that the final report of the mission found that last month's elections did not meet regional and international standards. Joining us now for an analysis is Dr. Marius Kudumo. Good morning, Doctor. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Dr. Kudumo, if we just go back to last month's elections there in Zimbabwe, what were your assessments on the manner in which these elections were conducted and also the prevailing situation?
Yeah, my assessment is based on the observers' reports. Obviously, there were various observation missions. I looked at the Zimbabwe Council of Churches report, preliminary statement. I looked at the SADC Electoral Observer Mission. I looked at the African Union and COMESA preliminary statement, as well as the Commonwealth. All these observation missions were saying generally, especially during voting, the situation was peaceful. But all of them have raised matters of concern. Therefore, I will say that generally it was peaceful, but there were serious matters that have an impact on a free, fair, transparent, and credible election.
Yeah. Some of those reports that you make mention of, and I'd like to highlight the one by the SADC Observer Mission, which was done by the Zambian president, that is, of course, Hakainde Hichilema, which really speaks to what you just alluded to. What do you make of it, really?
Yeah, look, I don't understand why people are making a serious issue of that report. Because firstly, we must understand that what the observers are looking at is what SADC as a body have said in terms of the SADC principles and guidelines governing democratic elections. Or it is what the African Union said in terms of the African Charter on Democratic Elections. So basically, I have seen consistency in all the reports that I have read. For example, in all these reports, from the Zimbabwe Council of Churches to SADC to AU, COMESA, Commonwealth, there was an issue of the opening of the polling stations as a major issue. There was an issue in all the reports in terms of equitable access to the media. There were also issues related to ballot papers in some cases, and all of the reports said, especially in your urban areas, specifically Harare and Bulawayo, that were not in time. And basically, the purpose of an observation mission report is to highlight positive issues as well as negative issues, and for us to be learning organizations. So I did not find anything extraordinary in the SADC Observation Mission report, because whatever they have said somehow have been said by the Zimbabwe Council of Churches, it has been said by the African Union and COMESA, and it has been said by the Commonwealth. So there's nothing extraordinary. But it is extraordinary that it is the first time that we are seeing SADC coming out strongly and referring to some issues that they think they did not work well. And obviously, there are political interpretations to it, but I have not seen anything extraordinary, except that SADC was very critical in their report this time around.
Very well, Doctor. Now, do the findings of these reports that you make mention of hold any hope for political reform?
Yeah, look, when you look at the SADC when you look at the SADC principles and guidelines governing democratic elections, there are clear expectations from the SADC member states. There are clear expectations from the observation mission. They are intended to make our elections respond to the common political values that we want to enhance in SADC. And these values are full participation of citizens in the political process, freedom of association, political tolerance, equal opportunity for all political parties to access the state media. This is what SADC have said. This is what is in the SADC treaty, for example, promoting common values of respect for the rule of law, democracy, and human rights. Now, if SADC want to be taken seriously, if the member states of SADC wanted to be taken seriously on the basis of the treaty and what they told us they stand for, then obviously member states, when observation missions have made some recommendations, we are supposed to take these recommendations seriously because they are intended to improve. And I do not know how Zimbabwe will handle it, but I think they are taking note because it's everyone who said it, including the academics in Zimbabwe, are raising certain concerns. So why not taking some lessons? Why are we not learning? Why are we not learning organization? That's a question that we need to ask. So they hold water, and I take it Zimbabwe will take them seriously.
All right. Since yesterday, Emmerson Mnangagwa went from being just a president-elect to now being a sitting president for the next 5 years. How peculiar, looking at, for example, what was described to have occurred during this election process, how peculiar and difficult does it make the situation?
Yeah, I think for a long time, Zimbabwe has been polarized politically and otherwise. You want really a united Zimbabwe, not only at state level, but the people of Zimbabwe. The people of Zimbabwe have the capabilities to restore their country to where it was. And for that to happen, you need unity of purpose. You need all the expertise of Zimbabwe that's scattered all over the world to get back home and contribute to the reconstruction of that country. Because the major problem in Zimbabwe are governance issues. And therefore, anyone who's serious with governance have a big challenge to unite the people of Zimbabwe and to have a common agenda. And this agenda is an agenda of development, reconstruction, and improving the lives of the people of Zimbabwe. I think this is the challenge that the president will have to face, unity of purpose. And I don't think it's the president alone, it is the people of Zimbabwe. That's why academics such as Ibo Mandaza and others are calling for what they are calling, because the challenges of Zimbabwe need everyone to be resolved.
Mm-hmm. Yesterday, we saw President Mnangagwa provide his inauguration speech. What were your key takeaways from that? And does this second term mean, what does it actually mean for President Mnangagwa and his legacy?
I think he's conscious of the challenges that he's facing. I think he's conscious that there are different views about the outcome of this election. And therefore, the issues that I have raised now should be his priority. And obviously, some parts of his speech was focusing on the promotion of the rule of law, democracy, human rights, and so on. Issues that we are criticizing that the observation missions have raised. But the president was committing Zimbabwe to common values, common political values that are maybe enshrined in the Zimbabwean constitution, as well as in the SADC treaty and the SADC principles guiding democratic elections. So he was speaking to the real issues facing Zimbabwe, but the challenges is not all the Zimbabweans were celebrating. There were some of them that were absent from that. So basically what I'm saying is the president is conscious of the challenges, but the challenges facing Zimbabwe cannot be addressed by one political party. It should be addressed by all the Zimbabweans. So I took it he's conscious of the challenges facing that country. And he was actually speaking the relevant rhetorics in terms of the Zimbabwe that he wants, but it's obviously the Zimbabwe that we are criticizing in terms of what the observation mission have pointed out.
Apart from the SADC Observer Mission report on the just ended elections, looking at the past few years, what has been your assessment to, the response, what has been your assessment of the region's response to Zimbabwe over the years?
Yeah, I think you have been seeing this polarization before elections and after elections for many years now. You have seen disputed elections. You remember that there was a government of national unity type of in Zimbabwe some years back because of disputed elections. So this has become a consistent pattern. Also, this thing of disenfranchising some of the voters, especially in urban areas, is coming a long way. Access to the media on an equitable basis by contesting political parties has been actually coming a long way, as well as legal reforms to enable free, fair, transparent, and credible elections. So I'm hoping that this time around, Zimbabweans and their institutions will really sit and deal with the issues at hand so that one day we'll have an election that is not disputed, but that is declared free, fair, transparent, and credible, not by the observers, but by the people of Zimbabwe, by the citizens of Zimbabwe.
At the inauguration ceremony, we saw the attendance of the heads of state of South Africa, Mozambique, and the DRC, and also congratulatory messages have been coming in sporadically. Should we consider these as endorsements?
I don't think so. I mean, look, the state's behavior in the international relations is not always interpreted as what we see. But I think that it is out of courtesy, out of respect, that some of the heads of states attended. And I think the inauguration was really at a short notice. Therefore, some of them might not have attended. But I think it's more out of solidarity and also maybe an indication that we are with you, we are prepared to address the issues of Zimbabwe with you. And the other issue that we can read is who attended. Most of the presidents that are attended have internal issues in terms of upcoming elections or security challenges, and therefore solidarity for them is important. But I think it's not necessarily endorsement, but it's more a matter of courtesy, and that's how states are supposed to behave in international relations. I'm saying this in terms of what the executive secretary of SADC have said, because when the observation mission report of SADC was criticized, especially the person who headed it, the SADC executive secretary came out to release a statement to say, no, that report that came out is the SADC report and we stand by it, which is unprecedented. You haven't seen it in SADC. So we are moving with times, and we need to move with times. We cannot assume things. We must do what is right. And it's not because we are supposed to do it, because that's what we promised in the various instruments that we have established. That's what we have promised. When we analyze the elections, we are reminding states about what they said to us. It's not what we are saying, it's what they say to us, and we are asking them to actually meet and implement what they told us they are going to do.
All right. Doctor, as we are rounding up our conversation, we obviously know that major elections are set around the region, including our own next year. What precedents does this situation set for the SADC region?
Yeah, look, elections are important in SADC as part of the consolidation of our democracies. And a credible, fair, transparent election is an outcome. You must put in inputs for you to arrive at that. One of it is adequate preparation, adequate funding of our electoral bodies, appointment of commissioners and staff with credibility to conduct these elections. It can't be an ad hoc thing. It must be properly prepared. I think that is the message for those that are going to conduct the election. Yeah. Remember that you have provided us with the conditions under which these elections are supposed to be conducted in terms of the municipality or domestic legal instrument, in terms of the SADC principles governing democratic elections, in terms of the African Charter and other instruments. Election is an expression of the will of the people, and it must be demonstrated as such. Therefore, adequate preparations is key. For example, in all these reports, not only in the SADC, in all of these reports, there were polling stations in Zimbabwe where ballot papers have not arrived sometimes by the time that the stations were closing. You really don't want to see these things happening. So what I'm saying is all of those countries that are going into elections prepare adequately, respect the will and the votes of the people, and conduct free, fair, transparent, and credible election. Election is about choices. When the election have ended, the contestants and the citizenry are the ones that give legitimacy to an election. Therefore, let's take them in our confidence and conduct elections that meet expectations.
Thank you, Doctor. Your final remarks, please.
Yeah, that is it. Elections is critical for me. It's part of building the state. It's part of democracy. If we opted for multi-party democracy, let's uphold it, and let's make sure that the wills of the people prevail in this election, and let's not manipulate elections.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Well, that was Dr. Marius Kudumo, who is international relations analyst, and he was just providing us his 2 cents on the just concluded elections in Zimbabwe and the inauguration ceremony of President Emmerson Mnangagwa that took place yesterday, and what it means not only for Namibia but also for the SADC region and the continent at large.